Okay, so hi Adam, how are you?
I'm well. Hi.
Hi. Okay, so guys, this is Barira, and this is our second episode where I have just requested Adam to come up with his story. Who is the person who has touched, moved, and inspired? But before we jumping into the story, I would like to know about you, what you do for your living.
Oh, my name's Adam Albion, and I'm the executive director of the Southeast Asia Leadership Academy. It is a regional group that educates and networks young leaders, young meaning mid-career, who are mainly in business, but also they can be in non-governmental organizations, government, and so on. However, before this, I was actually the director of the sister program in the Middle East, the Middle East Leadership Academy. And I want to mention that because the person who really inspired me and taught me in many ways everything I know, certainly about the job that I do, was the co-founder of that Middle East Leadership Academy, the man that I worked for. His name was Jim Krupe.
Okay.
Jim Krupe is an American. He has many achievements to his name. He was a soldier at one point and a military leader. And then along the way, he even founded a large business organization which still exists 40 years later in the United States called the Society of International Business Fellows. When he began to do something similar, networking and building an organization in the Middle East, he was the general, I was the foot soldier. I followed him around a lot to see
Okay.
how he met people and how he talked to them and how he convinced them to believe in his vision of a Middle East leadership group, especially since he was an American, I'm American, we were outsiders. What did he do in order to sort of convince people and make them believe and trust him? Well, I was his backup, you see, in many of the meetings that we went to, and I'm going to tell you about one of them.
Yes,
And
please.
so, what I would do was I would try to get them to trust us and believe in us by showing how much we understood their problems and research about their countries, their businesses. And so I was full of facts. And Jim would say time after time, I'm a very naive person, right? I don't know all of your problems. I
I
don't
know nothing.
know. All right. And I would say, but Jim, this is a formula for disaster. If you don't know, then you're ignorant. And he said, I'm naive. Well, one of the things he always used to say, I'm naive about, is he said, I'm so naive, I don't know that what we are doing is impossible. Right?
Okay.
Okay. And he was always looking for the universal in things. I was always looking to try to find out what was specific about there. So the story that I remember was we went to go see the president of Jordanian Airlines to try to persuade him to sign up and get involved in our program, maybe send us a candidate. And I had got a file about Jordanian Airlines and Jordan and who we were going to meet and so on. And I'd learned enough Arabic in order to be impressive and say hello to the man and all this in case he wanted to know that we were not just interlopers, but serious about trying to understand the language and the culture. And Jim just was Jim. We walked into the meeting of this guy and he said, hello, hello. And then they didn't talk about our program at all.
At all.
And he didn't give me an opportunity to talk about what I'd learned about their why they needed our program, what their leadership challenges were, how we were the solution to their problems. Instead, Jim and he sat down and Jim and he discovered that Jim was from Dallas, Texas. And this man had also studied as a young man at the university in Dallas, Texas. Oh, and they talked about Texas and Texas food and his memories of it and the Dallas Cowboys football team, the American football team. And they both supported the Dallas Cowboys. And at the end, Jim was saying, I'm going to send Dallas Cowboys t-shirts for you and your children. And the man was thrilled. And I was thinking, this meeting is a disaster. We have 60 minutes and we have spent 45 of this talking about nothing, zero, wasting our time. I was a young person and that was my thought. And then it got to be 50 minutes in. We still hadn't discussed anything. But what had happened was that the two men had talked about their values, their core values, what they believed in, how they saw the world, right? And on the basis of this trust, which I did not understand what was happening, on the basis of this, in the last 5 minutes of the meeting, Jim said, so I want to invite you to get involved in the Middle East Leadership Academy. And the men essentially said this, not in so many words, but this is what he said, and this is how I remember it, and this is what I learned. He basically said something like, I don't know what the details of it are, and the details to me are not so important. Adam, whoever this young secretary of yours is, he can describe it to my number 2 or my secretary another time. But what I do know is that if the organization represents the authenticity and the values which you have just explained to me through our conversation in the last 55 minutes, I know that I want to be involved in it. And the details didn't matter so much, right? The details were at a different level for us. But the decision that the president of Jordanian Airlines makes is not about those details. It's the big picture about whether or not this initiative matches our vision, our values, are we getting involved with people of the right character? And if he felt good about that through his reading of Jim and their interaction, everything else would fall into place. And he was right.
Wow, that's right.
Right? I was amazed. I was stunned. It undermined everything I believed about how you talk to people. Because ultimately, if I can say it a different way, I would have given them facts and figures. And Jim told them a story. A story doesn't mean it's made up, but he told a story about his life, his way of thinking, and the organization that embodied those life values. And the other guys saw it the same way.
And from there, lifetime connection has built.
It changed the whole way that I ever explained what I do, why I do it, and why anybody should be involved. I learned that leaders tell stories. And that's what I saw Jim do. It inspired me, and it taught me a completely different way of interacting, not only in the job, but with anybody that I met. That's my story.
Thank you so much, Adam. I mean, for sharing this wonderful, amazing story. So, friends, I will put the picture.
You have a picture of Jim? That's Jim Krupe.
Okay, so where he is now?
He is now in Atlanta, Georgia, taking care of his lovely wife, his daughter, and his beloved grandchild, Ian.
Okay.
That's it. Oh, and he hasn't stopped, by the way. He hasn't stopped. Oh, no, he's still networking people. The Middle East Leadership Academy, the MENA program, still goes on. He's still a very active and inspiring individual.
Any message you wanted to say before we conclude this episode?
Well, I want to tell everybody that the key reason that anybody wants to do anything with you, partner with you, is always down to not what you do, but why you do it. It's the story behind it, and it's the values that are being celebrated and built on in any activity that gets people involved. That's what I learned. Explain people the values and the authenticity, and they will follow. And that's how we are sharing your story with us today. Thank you. Thank you, buddy.